Hello, welcome to Keep It Simple with Brian McMullen. Today I'm interviewing Nathanael Opoulos. He has a podcast called the Pot of Gold podcast, and he's an entrepreneur. He's actually has his W-2 still, but he's building things for people, making it um, entrepreneurs better way to kind of move through the early stages of their business and start to own the business and not run in or work in the business. So Nathaniel is going to be great. Let's do this. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Keep It Simple with Brian McMullen and Nathaniel Opoulos. I got the name right?
Yep, you got it.
There we go. I'm going to call you Nathan because it's just so much easier for me. Is that okay?
That's completely fine.
I love it. I love it. So, as most of the people have seen me and seen our podcast before, they know that this is really just about talking with people and just building relationships and finding out what you're doing to either conquer your fears or to get yourself in a position where down the road you're not wishing that you did something, and feeling like you missed the boat. And I say that because, as most people know, I didn't start my real estate journey until I was late in life. I was 52 years old, and I just wish to gosh I would have started earlier. So that's what this is about. Is fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. All right. So first I'm going to ask you, who are you? What do you do now? And what are you kind of trying to do?
Well, my name's Nathaniel. Like we've already introduced, I am a CNC machinist as my grave shift job, and then I am building a business on helping other business owners with their systems and their operations, specifically to help them get clarity on what it is that they are solving as a problem for the market, as well as who they're solving that problem for, so that they can actually get money for fixing a problem that people will pay money for. Apart from that, I also am a podcast host. I run the Pot of Gold podcast. I've actually had Brian on the show, and we're just exploring, trying new things, and seeing what sticks.
I love it. I love it. So tell me specifically, are you in a specific, I know you through real estate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your business is in real estate. I don't really, that's not a criteria by any shape or form, right? So what would you say, who is a good target client for your business? Like who are you trying to find?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find people who are basically tied to their entrepreneurship job as almost if it was their 9 to 5, because they are working in it relentlessly because they don't have any systems or automations set up. And I come in and help them figure out exactly what they need to change so that they can kind of step away a little bit and then work on the business itself instead of being an employee to their business.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I ran an insurance business for 27 years. And I always tell people, like, I didn't start to become an entrepreneur until I started my real estate journey, and I was 25 years into my career by that time, right? I was just going to work, working hard, showing up. I always tell people I was always the best employee I ever had, right? I do. I show up, I work hard, and I still do it today. I show up and I work hard. But the hardest part of being an entrepreneur really is figuring out how to get yourself out of that business,
Mm,
right?
definitely. And this is a fairly new thing for me. I've only been in entrepreneurship and real estate investing for, I'd say, a little over 2 years now. Before that, I didn't really know which direction I wanted to go. When I was a child, the only ambition I ever had was to grow up and be a dad. So it's not like I had any kind of plan to go a specific direction. But after I married my wife, I was working customer service job again, which I told myself I was never going to go back to because I hated that kind of work. But I didn't feel like I had any options at a certain point. And so I was in this job that I hated in these little cubicles, forced to take these calls every day. And I looked around the cubicles and I saw people in their 70s and in their 80s that were stuck on those phones because they didn't have a retirement, they didn't have good social security or anything. They just didn't have any way to stop working. And I realized that I didn't have anything that set me apart from the rest of the market. I didn't have any
Yeah,
differentiating skills. And I was like, okay, if I don't make a change 50 years from now, I'm going to be sitting in one of these cubicles forced to continue taking phone calls. And it scared me so much that I quit my job that day.
interesting.
I didn't have a plan or anything. I just knew that I couldn't stay anymore. And it ended up that I went back to school to become a CNC machinist, like you mentioned. And because of that, I tripled my hourly rate over the course of about 7 years. Now, now that I know about real estate investing and how things work with money in that fashion, I could have done a lot better than what I did. But the point was is that I took a leap of faith, and I think a lot of people just don't do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's exactly what this podcast really is about. It's like, I don't and again, I'm the same guy. I had a good job. I mean, I had a business. I mean, I did have a business of my own, and I was making very good money, and I was putting away for the future, but not even close to what I've done in the last 6 years in real estate. Like real estate has opened my brain to all this stuff. So I hear what you're saying, but I think a lot of people, including myself, for years didn't do the thing that they wanted. So for you, it was like it was a do or die. I never felt that way. I
Uh,
just felt like I was slowly dying. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't going after my what I wanted. I was doing it because it fit all the other buttons. It paid the bills. It did the things, right? So I love that that you made that jump at a younger age, first of all, and with a sense of just I have to make a change. It wasn't really defined. Would you say that that's the right move for most people?
I don't know if it is. I think that there's a lot of wisdom in keeping your W-2 and then performing little experiments on the side. I think it's Alex Hormozy, a pretty popular business guy, that
Yeah.
talks about use your 9 to 5 to work on your day job, and then use your 5 to 9 to work on your own thing.
Yeah, I did that. Like I said, I started buying real estate, and I did that. I ran my business, and then I did that on the side for 3 years before I finally said, "Okay, I'm out," right?
Yeah,
And I will say this, that if I were smart, if I look back at it, I would have found a way, like you started your business, right? I would have found a way to have my business run for me, and while that business ran, I can go do the real estate stuff that I wanted to do. And I think that would have been smarter of me, but like you said, at some point we have to go. We have to move. Taking action, is better than no action.
yeah.
And whether that action is imperfect or not, you gotta move. And so I love the fact that you made a move and you did it. And now you're working through the process, right? I mean, it's not perfect, right? You're not sitting on what is sipping martinis or whatever the heck that people do when they have so much money they can't think, right? You're still working, but that's okay because 'cause you're going after your thing, right?
Well, and the interesting thing was is this was before I even considered entrepreneurship as a path, because I just went from one 9 to 5 job to another one. It was just one that
Yeah.
increased my ability to earn my hourly wage. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I also started to feel like I was starting to stagnate in my growth at my CNC job. It wasn't that
Mhm.
I disliked the work because I liked doing that kind of work. It was just a realization that if I didn't make some more changes, there was going to be a glass ceiling I was going to run into on how much I could earn and how much I could build. And so I started looking into entrepreneurship because of that. It was like this second instance of, okay, I've hit a wall again and I want to keep growing.
That's so interesting. I thank you for saying all that. Um, I started the real estate by buying a house. Then I bought another house, and then I liked it, enough to buy the 3rd house, and then I figured out, well, I can do it this way, and I think for me, real estate has been constantly changing,
Mm,
and then I get to a point where, okay, I don't wanna buy 1 house at a time, I wanna buy bigger projects, and then, and now I have a funding business, so that's my way to find new project, and so it's like, for me, real estate, did the exact same thing, but real estate keeps evolving for me.
got it.
Versus me going from one job to the next job and then having to go from that job to the next one, real estate just kept evolving for me. So that's kind of interesting how you laid that out. I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Um, Yeah, it is cool, and you have, family, married, kids
Yeah,
kid,
I've
right?
got a beautiful wife, and we actually struggled for 8.5 years with fertility, and we didn't think we were gonna be able to have kids. And for some reason, about 2 weeks after my sister-in-law passed away, we found
Mm,
out that we were pregnant. And so we just kinda guessed that maybe it was timing. God realized that we needed something to soften that blow, and we have a beautiful baby boy. He's about 3.5 now.
yeah, I'm not a promoter of any individual religion, but I have faith and I have belief. There's more out there for us, and, that is my when I hear that, I just think, so that's God saying, "Okay, this is coming for you,"
Yeah.
right? There's ends, but there's beginnings, so I love that. I love that for you guys. Very cool. You guys still living where now?
We're in Northern Utah, a place called
That's what I thought.
Ogden.
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
I thought that's where you were when we met years ago now. Oh my god. Years ago, it was in, Yuma, Arizona,
Yep,
right?
that's right. And actually
Yeah, that's
had to
right.
tie into one of my very first real estate investments
Yeah,
because,
I actually wanted to ask you about that. What is that?
so we went down to, Phoenix, Arizona, a place called Green Valley, where a crowd fund had purchased a 160 unit apartment complex. And we put money into the crowd fund and we get a quarterly return on that investment.
Okay.
So it's called the Sub 2 Fund. And I think we put about $10,000 in. So not a huge number of money, but we get a couple $100 back every quarter. And it's been pretty good for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about real estate too, is like I said, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to take action and do something, right?
Hmm.
I have clients who are doing that same thing with, in funding projects. So I tell me this. I would love to hear more about how long have you been in that fund and how much time do you need to be, there's certain requirements on funds like that, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that happen with different funds depending on how they're structured. The reason I was able to get into this one is because they had it open to people who are not accredited. And to be accredited, you have to either make, I think it's $350,000 jointly with a spouse or have a net worth of $1 million. And so I didn't qualify for that. Means I can't apply to accredited funds. But
Right.
because this one was open to non-accredited investors, I was able to put some money in there and start getting experience. And really,
Absolutely.
that was why I did it. It wasn't so much for the return; it was so that I could figure out what's this game all about. What's this look
And
like?
what's this about? How do I do it? And how do I take a little bit of action
Hmm.
so that I can learn a little bit more than I did yesterday so that I can go do the next thing, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I said my first real estate, I lived in California. All I knew about California was for me to buy a piece of real estate, it'd be 200. I mean, I'm just guesstimating $200,000 out of my pocket to go down. Then
Mm,
I'd have to pay a huge mortgage, which probably, even though rents are really high in California, the mortgage probably wouldn't be covered. And then the laws in California are such that I would be afraid that the tenant could take advantage of me,
yeah.
and then I would literally go bankrupt on one property, in California. So for years, that's what kept me from investing, right? And at some point, I realized, wait, I need to figure this out, and I took a little bit of time. I met people like me and you, and I found out there's a thing called cash flow, and it doesn't show up in California very often, but it does show up in other states and other places. And so like I said, it's sometimes you just have to go out and do something, take an action, find out how that works. And maybe it's not perfect, but it's the learning curve, right? So now your $10,000 there has been doing good things. You may at this point with the skills you have now be able to do something different with that you couldn't then, but you wouldn't have known that anyways.
Yeah.
So you just got to take an action, imperfect or not, and move forward, right?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's really scary. Like when I first started my podcast, I was trembling in my chair waiting for that camera to turn on. But part of that just has to do with the fact that when I was 18, I was actually assaulted by my college roommate and he crushed the whole right side of my skull. And so for a very long time, I was actually quite nervous to talk to people because I wasn't sure if something like that wouldn't happen again. And so it took me a long time to get around that, but I found that entrepreneurship was one of the best things that I could have done because it's forced me to talk to people, and that exposure has allowed me to finally heal from that
Wow.
nervousness.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that you had that kind of negative experience, but it sounds like you've turned that into something better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I started my podcast very, fairly recently, and I still get nervous every time.
Mm.
I'm nervous now. Um, I do feel like my kryptonite, is putting social media out there and putting things out there in front of people and being on camera. I hate it, but I also find that my solution is just turning this into a friendly conversation,
Yeah.
and really what I focus on is learning about you, and figuring out how we can do business together someday, and having a conversation like this is what it's about. So, yeah, we all have to find our little tools and what we want and what we need, where we need from where we're at to where we wanna go,
Yeah.
and the only way through that is actions. So, I love that. Um so tell me, I mean, what is a big fear? Because it sounds like the fear that was your big fear you had to conquer, right?
Yeah, talking to people was a big thing for me. It was, looking at that phone, knowing I needed to make calls, and having all the bad experiences from customer service, job, and this experience of, another human being, doing his best to end me, just kind of made it feel like that phone weighed 100 pounds every time I went to go pick it up. And I think that the podcast, being able to interview other people, getting out to these in-person meetups, and doing the networking, as well as like events like Squad Up Summit or the Limitless Arena, those have all helped me learn how to connect with people again. And that's
Interesting.
while I don't think I've made life-changing money, I have had experiences along this route that have changed my life. And I felt more fulfilled and enriched by my time as an entrepreneur than any other point in my life.
Well, you're young and you have time, so just keep plugging along and you're
Yeah.
gonna be there, right? So that's the key. That's funny. As you're saying all that, I was thinking I was in a customer service business, insurance, right? And a lot of people think insurance is sales.
Mm,
There are salesmen in the business, and those are the people who come and go, generally speaking, because they're not about really building the business, building the relationship. They're about making that sale and getting that, commission or whatever. But for me, it was always customer service. And I think I'm good at that. I mean, that's what my business now, my funding business is all customer service from, because that's who I am. That's what I'm about. But I still get nervous. So you should know that, I feel like I'm a pretty dang good, relationship builder and customer service person. And I still get nervous every time. And it's that moment when you're picking up the phone that scares the heck out of you. But once they answer and they say hello, I just takes over and I'm just who I am.
yeah.
Right. But to this day, it's the meetups freak me out. I don't like big rooms with lots of people who I don't know, and I have to meet and have to, I don't like that position I have to put myself in to this day. But I end up benefiting from it every time I take the
Yeah.
action and move
Yeah.
through it. And I used to tell my staff this, and in the insurance business, I use that as a guide because it's really I was there for so long, and I learned so much in that business about who I am and what I want. But I tell my staff members all the time, I said, "Listen, you can communicate via smoke signal. You can communicate via, um, waving, from 100 miles away, right, or 100 yards away. You can communicate with the text, you can communicate with an email, you can communicate, on a phone, you can communicate on a Zoom, but what's the best way to communicate? That's what you should be striving for,
Yeah.
right? So you and I are in different states, so obviously sitting down at lunch today is not happening, but this is probably the second best way for us to communicate. We can see each other, we can hear each other, we can see the facial expressions, the body language, right? So it's like you the hardest thing to do is be in front of that person. The easiest thing is the smoke signal, but that's not going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
So, it's really is about pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone and doing it. So I love that. I love this. I love it, love it. So tell me this. I mean, I don't want to keep you too all day long. How would we find you? How would someone connect with you if they wanted to?
Yeah. So you can find me on most of the social media networks. I don't do a lot of TikTok, but I am on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on YouTube. That's where my podcast is, the Pot of Gold podcast. And then, yeah, I think we'll call those three for now. LinkedIn's also an option, but
So the Pot of Gold podcast is a good way to find you and see what you're doing a lot. And then of course Instagram is what's the handle on Instagram?
it'll be at Nathanael_Opoulos.
So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna spell it out because a little bit because, and I'm gonna read it because I have to because your name isn't spelled like a normal way. So I'm just gonna say. So it's at Nathaniel. It's Nath Anael
Yep.
underscore and then it's
Opoulos.
Opus. It's
That's
Opoulos.
right.
So for those of you who are trying to actually go in there and figure this out without having to sit there all day long figuring out how to spell Nathaniel.
Yeah, there's pros and cons, right? The pro is that I doubt there's another human being on the planet that has my name. The
Yes,
con is
right.
that it's hard to spell.
Absolutely. And yeah, well, we'll take it. We'll take it. So, well, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it. Oh, I have one more question. And
Yeah.
I asked you before, and then your answer is so similar to mine. I feel like it's something I want to talk about. So in some of the communities we both belong to, there's different ways of saying, "Hey, what's your goal? Where are you trying to go? Where do you want to be in 5 years?" Um, One of the things that we use is as a guidepost is an Everest, your Mount Everest, and so the reason why we use that is because in Mount Everest, you don't just go there and climb up it, one day. You climb up to base camp and you go back down, and you go from base back to base camp, then you go up through the Kumeyaay Falls, I think it's called, and then you come back, and there's stages to this, right? And it takes you years sometimes to get to the top. So I am very uncomfortable sharing my Mount Everest because I don't really have a Mount Everest. A lot of people's Mount Everest seems to be like, I'm going to feed the world, or I'm going to put water in everybody, access for everybody to have water, or I'm going to I'm going to take care of the homeless. And I don't have that big a goal. My goal is I want to build a system that I can flourish in, that everybody around me flourishes, and everybody who does business with me flourishes. But I don't really have more than that yet. So I noticed that your goal, you kind of said the same thing, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I have a lot of clarity on what I don't know, the summit looks like, right? If we're talking about Mount Everest.
Yeah.
But I do know that I got into entrepreneurship not only because of the money, it was because of the fact that I realized that generational wealth could be spent so quickly that unless I learn how to pass the skills down for stewardship and for actually being able to create it yourself, then my son would probably not be able to keep it. Same as like somebody who wins the lottery isn't able to keep that money. So my mission, at least my personal mission, is to learn the different skills, the soft skills, the hard skills, the technical skills, to be able to make that kind of money for generational wealth, and then pass it down to my son and then other people. And so I like to teach business and share my journey along the way. That's why I started the podcast. That's why I'm doing all these other things.
So Nathaniel, I have a question for you. I want to know you're talking about this lead magnet tool that you have, and I really want to understand this better. Can you tell us a little bit about what that does, how it works, and who would be right for that?
Yeah, so like I told you, one of the things that I've been doing with my business is I've been trying to help other owners set up systems and automations so that they can be less involved in the day-to-day operations of their business. And so what I did is I realized that people who are just starting out typically are pressed for funds and they can't afford all the fancy tools like CRMs and these other things. And so I created a tool that you can basically capture names and emails and then deliver your own lead magnet using Google Scripts. And so if people are interested in that, they can just send me a message on Instagram. Say, why don't you just send me the word simple, since we're on the Keep It Simple podcast, and I'll know that Brian sent you over, and I'll give you a copy of that, and you'll be able to start capturing leads and deliver whatever resource you want to incentivize those leads to reach out to you.
Awesome, awesome. So basically, it's like a mini version of your marketing campaigns.
Yeah, basically.
Great, I love
And,
that.
and so it'll allow you to do it all through Google, so you don't have to pay anything up until about, I think it's 100 submissions a month. But by then you should be making money and you'll be able to afford a CRM at that point.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I love it. I will say that the I'm gonna go back to the Mount Everest analogy. You're on base camp, and guess what? That's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to be one of the 3 camps up necessarily. Not everybody gets there, right? But I'll tell you right now, you're better off because 'cause you're at base camp and you've tried to get there and you worked hard to get there, and you're gonna go try the Kamui Falls, and you're gonna probably have to do that 3 or 4 times to get to the next level, and that's okay too. So, I love that you're pushing yourself. That's really what I'm focused on. That's what I do every day for myself, so I love that you're doing it. So Nathaniel, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you
My pleasure,
today.
Brian.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, let's stay connected. Let's keep talking. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great.